Good morning, Dan and Amy. And Amy, our next guest, kind of uniquely positioned to rate the President of the United States because they're both Republicans, okay?
Yes.
They're both in elective office, okay? But they're both former reality television stars.
Ah.
Yeah, like you hope to be in Sweden someday.
Yeah, Alt för Sverige.
No,
it's called Alt för Sverige. It's where, it's similar to The Amazing Race and Who Am I combined.
Can I just say sob? That's the only Swedish word I know. He is Congressman Sean Duffy. He's from way north in Wisconsin.
Ashland, Wisconsin, I think.
Yeah, I think his district goes like from the Dells, like it goes north of Minneapolis. Okay. That's how far north he goes in Wisconsin, how far north Wisconsin goes. Maybe he can get you and the Peyton and Eli some passes to the Tommy Bartlett Water Show this summer, if you play your cards right. He's also married. We've talked to his wife before, Rachel Campos Duffy. So they are a power couple. They were featured at the Republican convention last year as well.
And they have 8 children, so they're very busy. Wow, you
impressive.
Can't get a minivan big enough for that.
That is impressive. Congressman Sean Duffy, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, Dan and Amy, it's great to be with you guys as well. Thanks for having me on.
Pleasure. And so the Wall Street Journal really torched President Trump today over 2 matters in the wake of Saturday night's terrorist attack. One is getting into what they term unnecessary personal squabbles. They're specifically, of course, talking about with London Mayor Sadiq Khan. And then secondly is tweeting such that he undermines his own administration and its personnel. And they're talking, of course, about the travel ban and him saying, I don't care what the lawyers say, effectively, it's a travel ban, blah, 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 rather than just letting Jeff Sessions and the Department of Justice litigate the matter before the Supreme Court without creating distractions. Do you think those are fair criticisms? Where do you come down on those matters?
Well, listen, I've been a long-time supporter of the president, but I think when he does things that are wrong, it's important that we call him out. And this, with regard to the travel ban, it truly is a pause. It's a 90-day pause to go through a greater vetting process to make sure we're allowing people in who are true refugees and they're not people who are extremist radicals that have infiltrated the program and are going to make it into the U.S. So it is a pause. And I think, the president's tweet makes it that much more difficult to get over the hurdle of our courts. I think that's counterproductive, number one. But on a positive side, this guy's not a politician, and he says what he thinks. You go back to the firing of Jim Comey. Most politicians would have sat back and said, you know what, this probably politically isn't the best move for me to make. I should, probably run this through, a number of different advisors and think of a process of how I get rid of the head of the FBI. But Donald Trump's an executive. He analyzed it, and at the moment he made the decision, he pulled the trigger and fired Jim Comey. Consequences be damned. And I think that's what America voted for also in a politician, or in our president, is someone who wasn't a politician, someone who would be a business executive, who would do what they think. And that's what he does. And he's a fighter, and he's a scrapper. And so though I don't like what he said, because I think it minimizes his or goes against his effort to win in the courts, the tweets that he sent out, he's saying what he thinks. And I think America, a lot of them still love it.
Well, but I thought the gravity of the office of the presidency would humble him and make him have more responsible tweets because, they're talking about taking his phone away from him so that he stops tweeting or possibly having an attorney to vet his tweets before he hits the send button. Do you think that would be a good idea?
Maybe we have to turn his TVs off and take away his cell phone. So that has to be disconnect his cable. I think that the tweeting, to your point, Amy, has gone a little too far and can be counterproductive. But it's also a benefit because the president is able to get around a left-wing media that's trying to bash him at every corner. Taking the tweet against the mayor of London and running with it, or the whole Russia collusion thing that they've tried to run with. And the president is able to launch these bombs over them and directly to the American people. And I think that's a positive avenue for him to have. I think he should be more responsible, though, in his use of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the key, right? It's the quality of the content, not the channel of communication. And it just he crowds out sometimes, exclamation points in all caps. He crowds out the reasonable discussion. Where in the wake of Saturday night, and now in the last 24 hours, what we've learned about these three terrorist attackers, say this is why we need a pause. You look at what happens when you don't properly vet people who are coming into your country, or you don't properly eject people who are in your country who mean to do you harm and have no right to be here. This is an example of why I'm talking about the pause as you properly described it. And that gets lost when you just say travel ban, exclamation point.
Well, I think that's exactly right. However, the president is, I think, an emotional guy, and he's tapping into. I think the emotion that he feels towards what happened in London is the same emotion that a lot of Americans feel. That I want to be protected. I want someone to look out for me. I want to call this for what it is, which is radicals who are taking, whether they're trucks or knives or machetes or guns, and killing innocent people. And I think that's why he was successful in the electoral process, was because he was channeling that anger. But I think goes to Amy's earlier point. If you're going to be successful as a president, you have to use all of your tools. Twitter's not the only tool that you have, and you have to be a little more reflective in how you're using it. You're not at Trump Tower anymore. You're now at the White House, and those are two different locations with two different jobs and two different powers.
You mentioned
the power of the White House is.
Yeah. You mentioned the Comey firing, and of course Jim Comey going to appear before the Senate Intel Committee on Thursday. President declining to exercise executive privilege and preventing his testimony, which I think is the right decision. Mm-hmm. And what do you anticipate from Comey? Because I got to tell you, I think this is going to turn out to be like the Rachel Maddow blockbuster story about Trump's tax returns. In other words, a nothing burger. Because Comey's conflicted. If he claims obstruction of justice, then he implicates himself.
Dan, I totally agree with you. Now, he might walk through a process of how he maybe felt uncomfortable with the president, but I don't think he will go so far as to say the president was trying to pressure him, because you're right. The next question will be, well, why didn't you tell somebody? Why didn't you go to the Department of Justice? There's a protocol for you to walk through if this is happening to you from the president, and he didn't do those things. Number one, but number two, I think it goes back to this: the left is foaming at the mouth about this Russia collusion between Donald Trump and the Russians, and whether it was James Clapper, who's come out the head of DNI and said he has seen no evidence of collusion between Donald Trump and his campaign and the Russians, or Dianne Feinstein, who sits on the Intelligence Committee, the U.S. Senator from California, has come out and said there's no evidence. Everyone who has spoken publicly about this issue has said there's no evidence to show collusion, but yet we have 4 investigations going on into collusion between Donald Trump and the Russians. This doesn't make any sense, and I think you're going to hear tomorrow as well from, 2 days from now, on Thursday, from Comey, that there is also, he has no evidence of collusion between Donald Trump and the Russians. And I think this is, it'll be a nice more into the side of the Democrats who keep wanting to find some excuse as to why Hillary Clinton lost, other than the fact that she was a horrible candidate and her issues and her message didn't resonate with the American people.
Now, Democrats, of course, seem to be focused on Russian collusion. Republicans focus on leakers, and learning information this morning about the 25-year-old from Georgia, Reality Winner is her name, who leaked some information. Do you have any more information about this?
I don't. I have what you have. Maybe to step back, though, allegations of collusion with Donald Trump and the Russians is just that. It's an allegation from a political party. When you leak confidential, secret, top secret information, that's a crime. And we know those crimes are happening on a daily basis because we see this top secret information roll out on the front pages of our newspapers. And I think those who engage in that behavior, like this young contractor who released the NSA report, they should have the book thrown at them. They should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. we in our country have to put our Americans first, and this intelligence is critical to our security and our safety. And if we can't keep a certain amount of information secret, that hurts all of us. And those who do it, those who leak it, have to be made an example of.
Well, and hopefully her arrest will be a message to others that perhaps are similarly inclined or have been leaking information to the press previously. I want to.
But Dan, one other point. I think the question for a lot of us, we sit back and go, "What the hell has taken so long?"
Right.
I mean, come on. I mean, let's put this in high gear to start rooting out all those leakers, because it's like a sieve at the White House and at the State Department. They feel free to, put out all kinds of damaging information about the president that has no place in the public sphere.
But are you concerned that all of this, and it's legitimate, but the pursuit of leakers, the discussion of leaks from the intelligence community, the Democrats pursuing, along with Republicans as well, the Russian collusion investigations, wherever they will lead, plus the special counsel, and then the issue of the threat that ISIS poses in the West, that the president and the Republicans' domestic policy agenda is dying on the vine, or at least starting to wither. You had Lindsey Graham say, not sure that Obamacare replace is going to get done this year. We don't exactly know where tax reform is at this point. Perhaps you can enlighten us on that. And then also, specifically, since you're a member of the House Financial Services Committee, we also talk about the regulatory state. Where are we on the idea of repealing Dodd-Frank before the year is out?
Yeah, so this is all the $10,000 or $1 million question, whatever we're going to use this morning. And as you and your listeners know, the House of Representatives passed a health care reform bill. We've now sent it to the Senate. The Senate is, contorting and, squirming and trying to figure out how they now come together and get 50 to 51 votes to pass a health care reform bill. You heard Mitch McConnell last week come out and basically say kind of like what Lindsey Graham said, which was, not sure we're going to get this done. I think that Mitch McConnell is as sly as a fox, though. What he's doing and what Lindsey has done is, in essence, tell conservatives, to tell Republicans all across America who have heard Republicans for 8 years talk about how we are going to repeal and replace Obamacare, and tell them that it might not happen because of the Senate. What that does is it activates every single Republican who wants to see this done to call their senator's office. And in Illinois, you don't probably have a senator to call.
No,
you call a neighboring senator.
We'll call Ron Johnson.
Republican.
Yeah, right.
Call Ron Johnson. But that's what's going to happen. I think the Senate will get health care done because the outrage and blowback will be so great it will be untenable for them. So health care is going to get done out of the Senate. I truly believe that. But as you probably have talked about, we have to get health care done first to then get to tax reform. And tax reform is being worked on right now. Our parties and our houses are all working together behind the scenes because it's, this is complicated stuff to get a bill done between the House and the Senate. But the reason that health care has to go first is we're using this budget reconciliation rule in the Senate, which means you only need 51 votes, because in every other bill you need 60 votes because of the filibuster rule. Well, budget reconciliation is a way we can get legislation through with only 51 votes, but there's certain rules to it. And the rules on taxes are that the tax reform package has to be revenue neutral. So if you move one tax dial down, you have to move another tax dial up. Well, that doesn't get you very far, does it? I mean, you don't get to reform taxes. But if we do health care reform first, we get $1 trillion of Obamacare taxes that we get to move the tax dials down on.
Right.
Not only that, if we do the border adjustment tax, which has created a lot of controversy, this is a tax of 20% on imported goods. That's $1 trillion in revenue, and we get to move taxes down another $1 trillion. So if we do that, we're able to bring our corporate rates to 15 to 20%, and our individual rates probably to 30 to 33%. All really good stuff. I think that's also on track for a late fall or at least before the end of the year time frame on tax reform.
And
again, right after.
And Sean, quickly before we got to go, but quickly on Dodd-Frank, is that going to be gone by the year's end?
So Dodd-Frank, thanks for asking that. It passed through our committee a couple weeks ago. This week on the House floor, Dodd-Frank Repeal and Replace and the Choice Act is going to be up. Now, it's going to then go to the Senate as well, and that's where you have Elizabeth Warren, who's going to be a great partner for us, I'm sure.
Yeah, right.
Dodd-Frank Repeal. But we're hopeful that the Senate can actually get a bill across their Senate floor, and we'll be able to go to a conference and at least lift some of the regulatory burden, at least off our small community banks and credit unions. So we're hopeful, we're optimistic, the glass is half full.
All right, very good. Thanks for the update on that. He is Congressman Sean Duffy, Republican congressman from the 7th District in Wisconsin, north of the Cheese Curtain there. Sean, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Dan, Amy, thank you for having me on, and also bring all you Chicagoites up to northern Wisconsin vacation. Spend a lot of money.
That's what we do. We're not just going on vacation there. We're moving there. Thanks for the call. Thanks, Sean. Take care.
Annie, join us on our turnkey.pro answer line.